Many people want to retire, but they're at a loss for how to think it through. We'll give you our 4 top ideas for how to plan for and think through what retirement's going to really look like for you. Hi, I'm Bridget Sullivan-Mermel, and I have a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I have a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And before we talk about retirement planning, Bridget, I want to remind all of our viewers to hit that subscribe button. That helps other people find this show. It helps us rise in the rankings. And with that, I'm really excited to talk about this, how to prepare for retirement things, and a little bit different, like a lot of what we deal with, of course, is the numbers and the taxes and the investments and all those sorts of things. But this topic we're going to talk about today is like how you actually retire, like what happens, the non-financial things that are really more important probably than the financial things, right? So I'm really excited. I know you've done some research. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like where we're going to start with this conversation?
Yeah, well, we're going to talk four main thinkers, 4 ways to think this through. Okay, so the first person I want to bring up is Carolyn McClanahan. Anyway, John and I are both familiar with her. And I just saw a session with her, and she was talking, she's an MD as well as a financial planner, so she's got a little different perspective. And she was talking about focusing on what you will regret if you don't do. Okay, so it took me a while to wrap my head around that, but I think that it's a good way to frame your thinking, and it's an easy question to answer.
So like what sort of, like from a practical standpoint, okay, what things would I regret? Well, I kind of draw a blank. Like what types of things did you discuss?
And this is for me, I started my bucket list of travel places. Like I'll regret if I don't go to Japan, Australia, and somewhere else that's not coming to my mind right now. I guess I won't regret it that bad. So anyway, so that's one thing. Okay. So what will, and again, it gives you a way to frame, like, how do I eliminate bad feelings?
Yeah.
Because with happiness, there's 3 parts of happiness. There's feeling good, not feeling bad, and meaning. Okay? So she's focusing on not feeling bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's how do I avoid regret?
Interesting.
Okay?
As you're describing this, it reminded me early in my career, I had a client, we're having a similar sort of a conversation about this, and I distinctly recall the next meeting that we had, they came in and the wife said, well, we booked his trip. And I had no idea what they're talking about. And I'm like, oh, good. What trip is that? Well, when we're having that conversation about, in some fashion about what things you would regret or what, it's really important to you. And sort of, I thought in passing, he had said if he never got to go elk hunting out west, that was like one of his big, his bucket list things, that he would regret it in some fashion. And she said, well, boy, when I heard that, I couldn't live with myself if something happened and he didn't get to do that. So I went and made that trip reservation. And again, it was really interesting for me, sort of like, I didn't even catch that, and that was one of the critical things. But that idea of taking action, or you're talking about taking your trips, like that can be something that's really meaningful for a person.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so if you think like, if I don't do X, Y, Z before I die, what's your bucket list? What do you? So even, and regret is even a little more extreme than bucket list. Bucket list is more like what do I aspire to, but regret is like, okay, these are the things I know I need to do. Right. The other thing she talked about is reframing retirement and slowing down work. So work stresses people out and they don't like it, right? But the conundrum is that people's health outcomes once they retire are worse, because that little bit of stress, interacting with people, challenging your intellect, all those, and probably working with hands maybe, depending on who you are, that all kind of helps you stay alive and stay vital and stay long. So she's an advocate for working longer, but not as hard when you're older. So
part-time work, consulting, those sorts of things.
And so that's the thing is that that's something you have to design yourself for most people. There's some industries like healthcare, for instance, where you can be a part-time nurse or a part-time
Right.
physical therapist, and it's all set up for you. But there's a lot of industries where it's not quite so much. You have to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? But having a little bit of pressure actually helps you and helps your longevity.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
her idea, I think underlying her idea as an MD is you're going to live as long and as happy as possible. So maybe that's not maybe you don't care about that.
Yeah.
But assuming that's your goal, those are two
great
ideas.
rules.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that you were talking about some other research you'd done on aligning your values and
Yeah.
really sort of identifying like again, similar topic, but a different vein, like what's really important.
Right.
Why don't you
Exactly.
talk a little bit about that?
So John Nelson wrote a book called What Colors Your
Parachute
Parachute
for
for
Retirement?
Retirement.
Yeah.
And that got me interested in values. So really understanding what your values are and then planning your activities around your values. It really helps because a value plus a goal equals more meaning. And again, meaning is one of the three parts of happiness, right? So that feeling of that hits the spot. That's really resonant. So an example for me is I realized when I was doing this that one of the things that I really care about is the environment. And when I thought about it more deeply, it's like trees. Okay, I don't work with trees. I don't think about, I love the tree in my backyard, but then I thought about it a little bit more and it's like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I would go in this great tree that we had in the backyard and I would just spend a lot of time in this tree,
Yeah.
the tree fascinated me. Okay, so I like trees. But again, I don't deal in trees.
Yeah.
I'm dealing in financial planning. It's like a totally, okay. So I like trees. So I started donating some money and getting more involved in trees. Okay, now tree plus, okay, I want to try to plant some trees across the street and I like that all came to pass.
Yeah.
And it oddly hits the spot. It's like
Interesting.
ridiculous. Like how much pleasure I get out of that compared to
By combining those values and then having a goal related to it, there's something that you wouldn't have guessed. It sounds like you wouldn't have guessed it. Yeah,
you
that's
wouldn't
cool.
have known it. I wouldn't have thought it except at this research. So that's my understanding your values is important, and then planning some goals and activities around those.
Yeah. So that's really excellent. Interesting. You have that personal experience, right? Like how it kind of shows up on that.
Yeah.
What else do you tell your clients or talk about?
With John's research, it was interesting. He talks about the roles that people can have. So think about the roles that you might have in your life. And if you don't think about it, in retirement, you'll end up defaulting to the homekeeper role or the keeper role. So if you think of yourself as an artist, as a scientist, as an environmentalist, as a hunter, whatever. Like if you don't think about it, like if you don't say, yeah, this is important to me, trees are important to me, then I'm going to, like the thing that comes to you if you don't do anything else is your house and caregiving. Like I need some help. Can you take me to the doctor? Not that you shouldn't help people. Maybe that's your role.
Right.
And maybe,
Right.
you'll,
Interesting.
So
being intentional about things is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. So the default tends, and there's nothing wrong with those roles at all. They're
Right.
great roles. But if that's not your groove, then
Yeah.
you
Interesting.
want to be intentional and say, no, I'm doing trees today. I can't see the contractor.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, we talk with clients oftentimes about the idea of there's no right answer to many discussions we have, but being intentional about whether it's saving your money or what you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is, but as opposed to turning around and going, geez, I never thought about that. To be proactive on that is really, really key.
Yeah. And okay. So another great thinker on this is Kathleen Reihl. And we both know Kathleen, and she's well into her 70s now, and she's active writing, etc. But one of the things she was on, I've got a TV show called The Chicago Money Show, and she was on my TV show talking about how you might live till 100. So that reframes it. Okay, so that when I think I could live to 100, and that's with current that's
technology,
what's
health,
happening.
right? Yeah,
people
right.
live in 100. So if I think I'm going to live to 100, that makes me more comfortable with retiring at 75.
Right.
Because I think, okay, how long do I need to be retired?
Right. Right.
20, 25 years, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that, like, reframing, like, how long is this going to last? Because people tend to think that they're going to die younger and they then keep doing. One of the things my husband keeps saying is, I keep thinking I might go and then I last another 10 years, which I'm glad for. Thank you. Anyway, the other thing she's an advocate for is, before you retire, with your spouse, backs turned to your spouse, write out Monday through Sunday, hours in the day, what am I going to be doing each hour? And then compare notes.
Yeah, interesting.
And see, okay, how are you filling your day? And again, be intentional about it. And make sure you plan time with your spouse, but then you're going to both want to be doing other things too.
Right, yeah. We talk all the time with people about how taking vacation, right? Being gone for a week, being gone for 2 weeks or a month is fantastic, right? But then there's always work to come back to when you're on vacation. When you retire, it's like every day. I had a client describe it. I think it was really great. He said every day is not like going on, and retirement's not like being on vacation. Retirement's like every day is Saturday. Right, vacation, you're off, right, whether you're at the beach or up at the lake or whatever it is, and you're relaxing. On Saturdays, when you're working, you've got things to do. There's stuff around the house, and there's projects, and there's things, and you got to go back to work. And it's that rhythm. I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it. It's not vacation. It's every day is Saturday, which is cool. But on your 777th day, Saturday in a row, like, what do you do? It's great for a while, and then, like, what happens? What happens Monday through Friday when you got those 24 hours to fill up? If you haven't thought about that, that can be a huge challenge for people. And I love that idea of go back to back with your spouse and say, listen, what do you think versus what I think? Because that's a real. I was just having the conversation the other day at a party with somebody about, hey, now suddenly you're in my space all the time, right? Here's my plan. And this was one of the spouses was already retired and the other one was going to, and they're like, yeah, we're trying to figure out how to make this thing work, sort of a thing. Because if you're not on the same page or have some understanding, you don't want to get to retirement and suddenly be all in each other's business. And right, it's really challenging. That's great.
Yeah, when one or both spouses are working, you've got a bunch of built-in time away from each other.
That's right.
And a lot of people also want alone time just at the house by themselves.
Right.
And so you want to be able to accommodate it all.
Right.
Okay, so the last thinker I've got is Paul Wong, and he is, you wouldn't have heard about him in our circles.
Yeah.
But he is a researcher on the topic of meaning. And again, we've got happiness, we've got feeling good, not feeling bad, and meaning. And meaning is that feeling of really hitting the spot, right? And so Paul Wong, according to his research, people over 80 have the most feeling of meaning.
People over 80.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you do a natural reflection on your life. And so, because you're putting it all together. And so when you talk to people who are in that age group, even it can be over 75, like there's this whole kind of life review going on.
Interesting.
And so I thought that was just a very fascinating topic and a fun thing to look forward to. Like, you're kind of putting the whole puzzle together.
Yeah.
Like, all the pieces are in place now, and you can kind of put it all together and make your story. So I just wanted to mention that's something to really look forward to.
Yeah, I have something to look forward to. I think it's a great place to sort of wrap things up. There's 4 super ideas about how to make retirement meaningful for you. And again, I'm John Shear, and this is Bridget Sullivan-Mermel. We both run fee-only financial planning practices, and both Bridget and I are members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners. So if you like what you hear on our show, you can go check out acplanners.org. Both Bridget and I have clients all over the country, so feel free to reach out to us. But if you want somebody in your local area, again, it's acplanners.org to find somebody in your area.
And don't forget to subscribe to Friends Talk Financial Planning. It helps our YouTube ratings, and it helps other people find our channel.